everybody. What time is it? Still good morning. I need the clicker. Yes, please. Thank you. So, buenos dias a todos. So before I get going, I'm going to first introduce you, very briefly, for a quick walk through the science elements of the CIMMYT strategy. Which, have we got a slide up, please? While the slide comes up. Now I can hear myself. So the CIMMYT strategy has been built from the ground up. So working with the broad CIMMYT community, including an early thought leaders group, working with stakeholders across the broad agricultural R4D continuum, development agencies, farmer groups, funders, other partners, to develop a strategy that is broad and encompassing. So rather than just something that you publish that then sits on your office shelf, this is a living document. It provides a unified strategic road plan towards the achievement of CIMMYT's vision, and within that, the vision of the CGIAR. Now I'm going to focus here on excellence in science and innovation. But I want to make a note here that strategy spans the entirety of the work of CIMMYT and its partners. So we recognize that science alone does not deliver outcomes. It takes the effort of an aligned, multi-stakeholder, multidisciplinary, multi-talented team to deliver the meaningful agricultural innovations that we want to see today. So that goes all the way from the cleaners who help maintain the integrity of the labs and the facilities, the people working in the field, all the way up to the DG. It takes the effort of everybody, and so we recognize that today. When we look at excellence in science and innovation, at CIMMYT we frame this around 3 pillars that you can see up here on the screen. We have discovery. This is the element that is more traditional to the CG, that element that we're more familiar with. It's the breeding, it's the agronomy science, really looking at co-creation of early innovations. System dev really talks to that scaling element, bringing these different innovations together and working with partners to identify what packages do we need to put together to really achieve the outcomes we want to see in farmers' fields. And finally, we've got a third pillar, which is called Inc. This is something that's a little bit new. It's looking at new ways of operating as an institution. We recognize that, our funder base is fantastic. We thank you all for your contributions and your trust in CIMMYT, but we need to think a little bit further. How do we build on the innovations, potentially in one space for income generation, as our tools and resources are used by resource-wealthy people in the global north? And equally to understand how we recapitalize some of that income to be able to innovate and support startups in the global south so that we can better scale the work that we do. The work, if you read the strategy, as like I said, it's a living document, please go and refer to it, is built around 5 primary pillars, which you can see here, 5 objectives. So first of all, changing the way we work. Oh, someone's talking to me. Looking at science and innovation, so changing the way that we develop the innovative products, really looking here to broader partnerships. Looking at translating that science and innovation into impact. This talks to some of the scaling elements. Looking at our guiding principles to really move towards climate resilient, sustainable, and inclusive agri-food systems. So here, trying to make sure we render systems that the innovations that we are putting in place do no harm. They are moving us in the appropriate direction to deliver the impacts we ultimately want to see. And then finally, acting as a voice for advocacy. So either using the power of CIMMYT's voice and the voice of the CGIAR, but equally ensuring that all of the broad stakeholders that we've spoken about today also have a seat at the table, so that we're not speaking for the farmers, we're ensuring that the farmers, consumers, and other stakeholders have a seat at the table. And so with that, that is the CIMMYT strategy. You can see a lot more on that if you read the document. I'll pop the clicker down. Now I'm going to talk to you about genetic resources. So hands up in here, who has visited now the gene bank? Ooh, a good number of people. I like to see that. So I was reflecting over the last couple of days about Dr. Borlaug and that saying that we often have of we stand on the shoulders of giants. When I think of the germplasm bank collection here, across the CG and other national collections, we're really standing on the shoulders of millennia of farmers who initially domesticated, and they've stewarded the evolution of the crop species and animal species we enjoy today in our food systems. So without these farmers, we would not have that heritage to leverage. Now, about 13 years ago, through an investment from Mexico, a very forward-looking investment, and more recently with funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and FAR, we've been able to have a step change in the way that we understand and explore these germplasm bank collections. So using modern DNA sequencing, using analytics, using GIS tools, we've really been able to open up that black box of diversity. So if I think back when I came back to CIMMYT 13 odd years ago, if you came to the germplasm bank and asked for a product, all those beautiful cans on the shelf would look something like this. For all intents and purposes, there was very little data in there to help a client, a scientist, a researcher identify something of value. And what we've been able to do through the application of these technologies is label those cans. So just as you going into the supermarket, you want to get a can of corn, many years ago, this is what you faced. Thousands and thousands of cans that look like this. Now we are able to label those cans so that scientists can go in and start to identify products that are more valuable for their needs. When we think of climate change, it's one of the biggest challenges that is facing the biological systems that we work in today. Now we are able at scale, massive scale, to explore these germplasm bank collections and identify genetic variation in them of value for climate change resilience and adaptation in the species that we cultivate today. Now, when we look at all of this variation that we're able to identify, we can see from the data that we currently have that 7 to 10% of that variation has never made it out into the field, out into breeders' hands. It's still sat on the shelves of the germplasm bank. So using this knowledge, the same modern tools that I mentioned earlier, together with good old field breeding, the same field breeding that Dr. Borlaug employed, we're able to develop super ingredients for the breeders and the farmers of tomorrow. We're able to concentrate novel genetic variation for climate adaptation, provide that to breeders so that they can start to develop the new varieties that will be needed in 10, 20, 40 years in the future. And additionally, use those same base ingredients to improve land races so that the milper-based systems and the traditional-based systems are able to keep using their native genetic diversity and keep maintaining their food production. Now, additionally, something that's equally important is the repurposing of this information for foresight. We're now able to use the same data to predict into the future climates where maize, wheat, other species will be grown. and understand what will the genetic makeup, what will the ingredient list of those varieties need to look like if we want to continue to achieve harvests that look like this, as opposed to the current projections of harvests that look like this. Now, as a farmer myself, as a consumer, I know which one I'd prefer. So moving forwards, we're not keeping this information to ourselves. We're working across the CG with sister centres, with universities in the global north, the global south, with our national agricultural research system partners, and small private sector companies to scale this opportunity. Currently, we're exploring this in both maize and wheat, but additionally in cassava, in sorghum, common bean, rice, and cowpea, many species that are fundamental to the food and nutrition of the globe. So in addition to the innovations that we're generating, we are creating knowledge and data that the scientific community of the future, the young scientists of today, the future scientists of tomorrow, are going to be able to leverage to build upon the shoulders of the millennia of efforts that farmers have put in. I've nearly finished. To help us achieve the harvesting of impact that we're trying to look forward to as part of the CIMMYT strategy, the CGIAR strategy, and that of other partners and funders. And with that, I will hand over to my erstwhile colleague and friend, Dr. Kevin Pixley, who is the director of the Dryland Crops Programme. Thank you.